Hey guys. Um, how much like percentage wise or like essential content wise, how much did I miss of secret stuff? There's a final level where you type in the password. Um, mm, okay, not tonight. Maybe I will come back and do some Hotline Miami. Uh, is the secret password like made up of characters that you find along the way? Yeah, yeah. Uh, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll see. I honestly don't think I'm going to be able to get through Half-Life in the remaining 10 days of the month. Um, so I may need to call Hotline Miami a little bit early, just based on that. Um, The guys you meet at the end are meant to be the developers, which puts a different slant on the conversation about killing, making money. It's a game, etc. Thoughts? Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I'm curious, sort of where you pick that up. You state it as though it's established. Like the devs have talked about it, or it's somewhere established in the game. I'd be really curious to know where that is, but I definitely got that sense. And I talked a little bit about how resonant the player and the character feel at that ending moment. Uh, yeah, I mean, why did you make me go out and commit a bunch of grisly murders? Because we made a game about it. That's the game that we made. I think it's that's interesting. I don't know that it's satisfying. Like, yeah, sure, totally. Uh, the A lot of people make those games. Like, what are you? Is it special? Are you making some kind of a special statement about that? Um, that's not clear to me. Like, it's not like my mind is blown by the revelation that people programmed this game and by virtue of doing that made me kill a whole bunch of simulated people. I mean, that's 90% of the games that are out on the market. So I don't know that I totally buy that. I think that makes sense, and I get that from the ending. But I don't know that it's actually satisfying in and of itself. Um, if you were just going to contradict the story with the second character, why have us play as the first protagonist at all? Why not just have it be about character two? That's a good question. Um, Character one's story is, like I said, it's worn out and sort of it's obvious in its emotional manipulation, but it is still emotionally manipulative. And I had an attachment to it. I think that if, for example, if we were just going to start this game at chapter 16, um, I would not care about what was going on. Like, I would have no emotional investment in it. The first 15 chapters do a really good job of creating an emotional investment for me, even as it's sort of ambiguous what's going on and who I am and what my role is. I'm nonetheless sort of, I've got this woman in a refrigerator story that is, to its virtue, not not like shoddily done. It's I mean, often that trope will be trotted out in the first act of a story as, like, hi, backstory is I have this woman in my life that I care about, and oh no, she's been brutally murdered, and that's going to drive the rest of the action for the entire story. This was, I mean, at least that happened in the third act. If you're gonna have to have that in the story at all, which you don't, but if you're gonna do it, then at least they did a good job of like making me care about that relationship. So I think the first 15 chapters were a lot about emotional investment, and I think they also might have been about posing some of the questions that the second part of the game is maybe meant to answer. I just haven't yet wrapped my head around uh, what it is, what answers it's providing. Because it's a cop out to say that it doesn't provide any answers. I mean, the surface narrative is that no, there are no answers and nothing matters. But I mean, I don't buy that. I think like if nothing else, that is the answer. Like the experience that they are going for is a sense of hopelessness or desolation or grief or something. Like there's some kind of intended experience. And the game is too carefully designed to have been designed with no purpose in mind. So I think that having that purposeless ending is part of the larger design of the game, and I'm still sort of like noodling around what I think that means or what I think it's saying. Um, couldn't you give the girlfriend, etc., to the biker? Oh, I see. Couldn't you have just one character that goes all the way through? I think so. Okay, like I say, I don't claim to have a good understanding of what this game is about. It is definitely like trying to shroud itself in ambiguity. And it does a good job of that. It does a good job of it, meaning that it does it. It shrouds itself in ambiguity. It makes itself hard to understand, but also intriguing. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, it doesn't feel random. It doesn't feel like this is just something absurd. It feels very carefully designed. And it also feels like it is saying something, and I could sort of sit down and think about it for a while and try to figure out what it's saying, and something would come out of that. It doesn't feel empty, but I haven't done that, so I don't have any answers for what it's saying. Here's my suspicion, though: what it is trying to do is based on giving you a complete narrative arc in the first 15 chapters. I think that's a core part of the experience that it's trying to present. And just from a like pure experience standpoint, I mean, I can tell you that is extremely jarring to have the credits roll and then have the game continue and have it continue sort of in the same world in an almost familiar pattern with new characters. It's So this isn't exactly parallel, but when I talk about David Lynch, I'm thinking specifically about Mulholland Drive. Mulholland Drive has a sequence about 2/3 of the way through the movie where everything changes, and the characters that you thought you were following are no longer the characters that you're following. They're no longer even the people that you thought that they were. Characters and actors get reused in different roles, and it's not immediately obvious what's going on, but it's really super interesting and intriguing. And if you sort of, oh my god, my cat is coughing up a hairball. Good. If you if you watch it a couple of times and you think about it, and if you read sort of other analysis that people have done, like it makes sense, and it's a very intriguing sort of story about identity um, and at least a mild psychosis. And I feel like this is the same thing. This is a story about identity and at least mild psychosis, and it's important to that story, to the experience of that story, that everything get turned on its head partway through. Um, I am guessing that it's also important to the story that they're trying to tell, although I'm not sure why, that there be a sort of complete arc in the first part. Mulholland Drive doesn't do that. Mulholland Drive is a mystery, and it's sort of just as they're starting to unravel the mystery and finding clues that lead to more clues, that everything gets turned inside out. In this game, it's it tells a whole story, and then it rolls the credits, and then it turns everything inside out. I think that's significant, even if I don't really understand what purpose that served at this moment. Biker can talk about or investigate the game because they don't benefit much from the rules defined by the game, something like that. It's actually like just the fact that the biker can talk about the game is really interesting. So this is a follow-up to Character 1 has all of the gameplay agency but no narrative agency. Character 2 has no gameplay agency, no masks, no guns, but actual narrative agency, dialogue, which is neat. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I didn't really think about it, but I pointed out that the first character is not only not voiced, but he never has any actual dialogue. He never says anything in conversations. He's only spoken to. Whereas the driver, the biker dude, does totally talk, and he even has dialogue options. That's interesting. Don't spoil Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I need to see that movie. I'm a terrible person for not having watched that movie yet. Agree, it's not hugely satisfying, but it was more interesting than other endings, in my opinion. There is an interesting counterpoint between the endings based on what type of gamer is playing and what they desire from games. No, I agree, and when I say it's not satisfying, oh god, what do I mean by that? I think it's not narratively satisfying, because I haven't yet puzzled out what I think it's supposed to mean. It's the kind of story that I feel like I need to really give some thought before I'm gonna understand it. I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm looking forward to sort of like reading other people's takes and trying to piece together sort of what is the point of this. Because like I said, I think it does have a point. I think it's very consciously designed. But the fact that I'm left kind of puzzling about it, it's hard for that to feel like a satisfying note to actually end the game on. Yeah, biker even has don't kill options. Totally. That's way more agency over. That's way more agency at a high level than the first character ever gets. The first character only gets this sort of tactical agency. Like you get to decide how you're going to approach problems, but you have to find the same ultimate solution to all of the problems. So were you a good or a bad person? Did you even care by the end? It appeared like the game took you over in the last stream. Yeah, definitely still not a good person. I think, the emotionally, the girl in the refrigerator, trope makes me feel at least somewhat more justified about the ending. I mean, I was in kind of, blood rage mode, even as I kind of roll my eyes at that narratively. Uh, and then Biker, it's interesting because Biker is definitely not a good person. I feel like, because my association with him is he was a boss midway through the game that I played, and he was extremely hostile towards me, and I had to kill him. And so, I have no empathic associations with him when I take him over. On the other hand, Biker actually seems more deliberate in sort of everything that he does. He's not. I mean, maybe there was one level where he answered the phone and went out and killed people on orders, but mostly he was trying to figure out what was going on. And he was trying to track down like who was responsible for all of this, and did it. Whereas Richard, or whoever the first character was, didn't do any of that, and maybe had those questions, but never actually voiced them, and never did anything other than sort of obey orders. With the difference between playable characters, does that demonstrate a difference between player, mechanical, and character, narrative, motivation? I think one of the things that the game is trying to do is blur the line between those two different motivations. I think it was even more obvious that those were different things early in the game. Because early in the game, I found the controls and the interactions extremely satisfying, even as I was, horrified by the violence that was being depicted, and that I was, enacting on these other characters. Towards the end of the game, and especially in the last chapter, I feel like it's really pulling the player and the character into one figure of, somebody who has been manipulated into performing, essentially, for no meaningful purpose, which is, as a player, that's not unexpected, right? That's how we almost always approach games. We expect games to not have a higher purpose. We expect them to not really have an effect outside of the game. We make choices, and we do things, and we perform actions within the game, within the confines of the magic circle, and those actions don't exist sort of in our larger life. But for the characters who are in the game, if you want to sort of think about them as philosophically distinct entities, then that is their life. You are performing their lives, and so it seems appropriate for them to expect that there's more to it than just a game. Having the game sort of address that disparity directly in the last chapter felt to me like it was really drawing parallels between the character and the player, and drawing those two identities closer together. Maybe the reason for the second character is simply that the defining trait of your first experience is supposed to be lack of control or agency. So they need to give you someone else for the segment where you have any kind of active role in the discovery of the truth. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, the story of, I'm going to call him Richard, although that's probably a different character. That's probably the chicken man in the back room. Well, whatever. The story of that first character is very it is a complete story about a person who has no control over his life. It's a story that reminds me, a lot of like Driver. Driver, I think, is a very similar sort of story about a person who has an extremely violent lifestyle and kind of no real control over his life, and tries to reach out to other people, and doesn't do a super good job of it. And there's no sense of agency to that, and so then telling that as a complete story with an ending, roll credits, then allows us to come in with a second character who can actually more directly address the point of this lack of agency, this sort of inability to decide the course of your life, which parallels the course of the game. I'm essentially given a game, and I have to play it to its intended end. I don't get to decide what the end of the game is going to be. On the point of Biker being more deliberate, I thought the fact that he couldn't pick up alternative weapons was really interesting, helped create that feeling. All the weapons still dropped on the ground and appeared interactable to the point where they continued flashing on the ground, but Biker refused to pick them up and use them in a way that the player is used to. I think it was both a subtle and powerful way to convey that Biker had a deliberate personality and a concrete identity. That it definitely, like, that kind of thing, and maybe that thing specifically, because that's the most sort of prevalent and persistent, that like really serves to reinforce the distinction between those two characters. And just, I think, by virtue of the first character is the first character, that's my baseline. And so my expectation is that everything's going to be like that character. When Biker appears and is different and has a different way of interacting with the world, that makes him feel special in my mind. I mean, it makes him feel different from the first character, but also like he's got more of a personality than the first character did. Even though, there's not a really good reason for that. There's not a good reason for saying refusing to pick up weapons implies more of a personality than picking up weapons. But because, I guess what I'm saying is, if it had been reversed, if we played as Biker for 15 chapters, and then all of a sudden got a character who could pick up weapons, I think I would have the same feeling of this second character is special. This second character has more personality. Oh, did my stream crash? Sorry about that. Cool. Okay. Yeah, the stream stepped out. Good. That's okay. I didn't say anything interesting while you guys were gone. Don't worry. Any other questions? I'm going to wrap up pretty soon. That's an interesting take on it. I saw it as helping to solidify Biker's identity because Biker used solely one mask, absolutely, and one set of weapons, so he had his way of doing things rather than being a tool for the player to slaughter people. That's true. The original character plays around with the concept of identity a lot, especially with this idea of masks. But weapons also factor into that, and the fact that you take different approaches to different tactical problems depending on what weapons you have. Whereas Biker doesn't. Biker has a solid identity, and it's set, and it's much more driven. It's much more purposeful. It's much more deliberate than the first character. He's got his own weapon. He's got his own face, his own mask. That's a really good point. I like that a lot. Judging by how the game went and what Richard Rooster said, I'm fairly certain that Biker's ending is what would have happened if you hadn't killed Biker. It's referenced when he said that he will never see the full picture of what is happening, and it's all his fault. Interesting. Interesting. So, yeah, I can see that. I can kind of imagine this is kind of a like sideways timeline that provides us with some of the answers that the first character doesn't get to see, as potentially unsatisfying as those answers are. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to add to that. I don't think. I think that's a fascinating sort of take on it, and that makes a lot of sense. Um, it's a little. I mean, it's still strange to me, sort of why the game goes into these parallel timelines and why. I mean, why parallel? Why couldn't you just? Why did you have to be Biker? Why couldn't you be another character who continues this sort of hunt for answers after the first character has completed his story and sort of never receives the answers that he wants? I don't know. It doesn't tie everything in a neat bow for me, but it is certainly an interesting way of looking at it. It's interesting that Biker has more knowledge than the first character and even the player. Totally. Yeah. Cool, guys. I'm gonna. So February is. I'm trying to actually play these games. What I would love to do, what I am hoping to do, is get to put together some kind of a like final thoughts wrap up on each of them after I've finished and after I've had a chance to sort of think on them and read up on other analysis that people have done. So I'm really curious. I'm really curious to sort of read about what the like secret ending looks like, and if there's any actual narrative content in the past the bonus puzzle at the end, and see if that sheds light on anything. Although, quite frankly, I feel like a game needs to speak for itself, even if it says more in a sort of secret way. There needs to be an understanding and acceptance that not everybody is going to go that extra mile. So I'm also really interested in sort of sleeping on what is this game saying just with the content that we saw. Do you guys have ideas? I love hearing them, and so definitely keep letting me know what you think. But I'm super excited to try out Half-Life. Oh my God, Half-Life is a really old game. So we will see how that goes. I mean, it's obviously it's a classic. It's a game that everybody should play, and so should play it. It's a forerunner in the first-person shooter genre. It did things with narrative and cutscenes that had never been done before. Now those things have been done before, and I think we've gotten used to them. And so going back and playing a game that is a progenitor to a lot of stuff that's just sort of commonplace now. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It's also going to be another really shooty game. So we'll see how I do with that. I don't know when I'm going to start. It's possible that no, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to stream on Friday. I'm not going to be able to like marathon it this weekend, but I should be able to stream for at least a couple hours on Saturday and get it started. There is literally no way that I'm going to get all the way through Half-Life before the end of the month. And on March 1st, I fly off to San Francisco for the Game Developers Conference. So we'll see. Schedule's going to be a little spotty. I'll keep you guys updated on Twitter and let you know when it looks like I'm going to have time to do stuff. But even if I don't get Half-Life done in February, I'm gonna do Half-Life. So we'll at least get through that together. My plan is to do Half-Life Source. I think is the one that I have. I don't know if that is a remastered. I mean, I believe that's a remastered version. The game that I have is called Half-Life Source. Yeah, meow. Sorry, cat. I'm gonna go pay attention to my cat. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and asking questions and helping me get through the end of Hotline Miami. That was an interesting, challenging game and a challenge to stream, and I really appreciate especially like going through chapter 11 again, where I literally had run out of things to say, and I was just dying over and over again. Thanks for sticking with me through that. I appreciate that. I look forward to playing Half-Life with you guys in the future. So have a great night, and I'll see you later.